One of the biggest challenges that aspiring Scrum Masters face when trying to switch careers and become Scrum Master is understanding the depth of the Scrum Master role. Aspiring Scrum Masters have heard over and over again that knowing Scrum is not enough. And then they get confused. If knowing Scrum is not enough, then what else do I need to know? Now, these certifications don't even help out because when you try to get a CSM or a PSM, many times the modules are focused on Scrum. And so when these aspiring Scrum Masters come out of this training, they feel like they are equipped for the role, only for them to be overwhelmed by the job descriptions when they're trying to apply for a job. Now, when they get to meet coaches and mentors tell them that you need to know more than Scrum because in this role, you're going to be doing quite a number of things. Now, this reality also becomes like the beginning of the problem for this aspiring Scrum Masters because they do not know where to begin. Now, that is the reason for today's video. In today's video, I am going to be explaining how to coach yourself, how to expand your knowledge so that you can prepare yourself for this Scrum Master role. And so that eventually, when you get this job, you can excel on this role. Now, one of the easiest ways for you to be able to gain a deeper understanding of this role is actually for you to purchase my new book, called the Essentials Scrum Master Guide. Now, while this book might be an interview-focused book, one of the things that I've learned, just in the last few weeks from people who have purchased this book is that this book has provided them a learning guide. So when they come across questions that they don't know, what do? They go on Google to be able to deepen their understanding of those concepts. And this is fantastic because it's actually expanded the mindsets, the horizons of those individuals who have decided to use this book as a learning guide. Now, this book has 100 questions and answers. Now, how are you going to use this book to your advantage? What I would propose for you to do is review all of the questions. Now, every question is focused on a specific concept. So if you do not understand the concept, then that means that you have a learning gap there and you need to go read up on that gap. Now, when you open the book, the first few pages actually list out the 100 questions. And so what I expect you to do is, once you read the question, if you're not able to answer it, that means that you need to go deep in your knowledge. For example, one of the questions here says, what prioritization techniques do you coach your product owner on how to manage the product backlog in a Scrum project? For you to be able to answer this question, you need to know the prioritization techniques that exist in Agile. You need to understand, how do we even manage a product backlog? Now, how am I going to coach my product owner who owns that product backlog on how to prioritize the backlog? So you understanding that question helps you understand prioritization techniques. Now, once you're able to understand prioritization technique, that means you've improved your agile way of working, because when you get into that situation where your product owner does not know how to prioritize, guess what? Because you've learned prioritization techniques, you are able to then coach your product owner on how to prioritize. Now, this book also does a good job in providing you the answers so that way you're able to know exactly where to start. And when you start reading and you deepen your understanding on Google, you're able to look at the answers that I have provided, and you're able to know that, okay, I am researching the right thing, I'm on the right path, and then you can continue your learning in that area. One of the things I don't want you to face, in your learning is going through the rabbit hole of learning the wrong thing. And that's why these questions actually provide you that guide that will be super helpful for you. Now, let's take a look at another question over here. Can you describe a time when you had to deal with a difficult stakeholder or product owner? How did you manage the situation? If you've never been a Scrum Master before, it may be difficult for you to be able to understand, how do you deal with a stakeholder, or how do you deal with a difficult product owner? Using this book as a guide provides you the answer. And then that way you are then able to look at other answers that you can have. One of the things that I've noticed, even me reviewing my book, is that I'm able to also deepen my own knowledge of, concepts. And when I'm teaching and coaching other people, they are also able to expand their knowledge, because sometimes you come across a question and you don't even know how to answer it, right? Let's take a look at another question over here. Can you explain the difference between velocity and capacity in Scrum? Now, velocity is a concept in Agile, and capacity is also another concept in Agile. Now, if you're not able to explain the difference between velocity and capacity, guess what? This book provides you the answer. And even after reading the answer in the book, I would expect you to then go on Google, go and research more about velocity, research more about capacity, understand the difference, understand how to put it to good use, and how to use it to help your teams become even more productive. Okay. Now, another question here is, can you explain the key principles and values of the Scaled Agile framework? Now, if you don't know anything about SAFe, there is no way you would be able to answer this question. But guess what? Because the answers are in this book, you are able to use the answers to kick off your learning, and then you're able to go on the SAFe website to further your learning. And now you're able to understand, okay, how do I merge my knowledge of Agile and my knowledge of SAFe to work? Learning this way further expands your mindset, and you will notice that the more you get exposed, you then get more confident, because now you know the different concepts that you are most likely to use in an Agile space, and you are more confident to show up in an interview because you know that now you know much more than Scrum. Now, out of this 100 questions, I cover different aspects from, you learning how to answer the almighty question, tell me about yourself, to you understanding Scrum, and Agile, the principles, the values, to your responsibilities as a Scrum Master. What are the different ways that you can handle conflict or disagreements in a team? What are the techniques to ensure effective communication? How do you measure the success of a Scrum team? How do you handle changes or disruptions in sprints, right? What technique do you use to estimate and plan project timelines? How do you handle dependencies and coordination with other teams within your organization? How do you prioritize and manage dependencies? What are the strategies that you use to ensure that the Scrum team remains focused and motivated throughout the sprints? How do you measure and track progress in a SAFe implementation? These are different questions that would help you touch different concepts. And that's why clearly knowing just Scrum would never be enough, but using this book as a guide, it would help you expand your knowledge. It would expose you to different concepts within the Agile space, and it ultimately improve your confidence up. By the time you are scheduled for an interview and you show up, you are better relaxed, you're confident, because you know that at least you have gone through 100 concepts, that you have an in-depth understanding of what those concepts are, how to put those concepts to use, and what to do in those situations. So definitely, if you have not picked up a copy of this book, I highly advise you to pick up this book, because I know that this is a game changer. This will help you prepare for interviews, but more importantly, this will help you excel in your job, because you're not just learning for the interview, you are learning to understand, you're learning to know how to apply those concepts at your place of work. Also, there are questions that have to do with continuous integration and continuous deployment. You have questions regarding retrospectives. You have questions regarding deployment schedules and what you do in that situation. You have questions regarding DevOps. You have questions regarding remote teams and how do you manage that. You have questions regarding the multiple frameworks and what you would do in that situation, and how to support your team in that situation. And you have various scenario-based questions that if you are not on the job, you clearly would not know what to do. And that's why I would highly recommend that you pick up this book. You don't have to pick up a live copy if you don't want one, right? However, if you're somebody who is a digital reader, just like myself, I love to read on my computer. You can always grab a copy, an e-copy directly from my website, a scrummasteryplaybook.com. And if you are a physical reader where you like to go through books and make all of those notes, you can always go to Amazon to pick up a copy. It's quite bulky though, because it's 100 questions and answers. So it's quite a lot, but I will tell you that this will definitely improve your knowledge. This would expand your knowledge. This would deepen those concepts in Agile that you need to know. And once you are able to learn all of the 100 questions here and deepen your knowledge, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to get your job, pretty soon. Once you're able to understand those concepts, you know how to apply them, and you just give your best at those interviews. Now, let's go through one of the questions in this book and let's look at the answer to that question. So one of the questions here is, how do you handle situations where your team's velocity fluctuates significantly between sprints? What actions do you take to address this? Now, an answer is acknowledge the reality. You've got to start by acknowledging that fluctuating team velocities are not uncommon, right? Sometimes people think that the fact that velocities are fluctuating means that, the team is not doing well. Even if your team is doing really well, they are not going to have the exact number every sprint. It's going to range, right? So let's say that the average velocity for a team is maybe 30 per sprint. Sometimes you're going to have them do 32. A few times you might have them do 29 or 28 or thereabout. As long as it's like 2 minus 2 or plus 2, they are still within a good range. It's when maybe the average velocity is 30 and the team is doing like 25, 22, that there is a problem, because there is a reason why there is that deep gap. So first of all, it's good for you to let the interviewer know that velocities will not always stay the same every sprint. So it's not uncommon for you not to see that fluctuation. However, if there is a steep in that fluctuation, then we want to try to address what that is, okay? Now, another way, one of the ways, just continue your answer, would be data analysis. So you want to describe how you would analyze the data from the previous sprints to understand the reason behind the velocity fluctuation, most especially if there is a deep gap between the fluctuations. For example, let's say the last sprint it was 22, this sprint it was 27, next sprint is 17, the new one is 25. Like, let's get into it. What is causing all of those fluctuations, right? Another thing you want to do, is still answering this question, will be to have a collaborative retrospective with the team, where you want to emphasize your approach to conducting a retrospective with the team. This then gives you an opportunity to discuss the reason for the velocity fluctuation and gather insight from team members, right? So that means that you've already analyzed the data, and now you want to meet with the team to say, hey, this is what I've observed, and also provide that opportunity for the team to be able to share their own insights into the reason why they think that their velocity is fluctuating. Now, in that retrospective discussion, you want to then identify the root cause. Why are we having this steep in our numbers? What do we think is the reason? And you will be surprised that there are multiple reasons that is causing that fluctuation in the team's velocity. Another thing you want to do will be to document, the insight that has been received, and then you want to make adjustments in your next sprint planning session. So depending on the outcome of your retrospective and the conversation that you had with that team, you guys want to ensure that you implement some of those immediately starting from the next sprint planning session. So if we need to adjust the way we estimate work, if we need to adjust the way we pooling work and the amount of work we pooling, whatever we think the root cause might be, then we clearly want to implement that almost immediately. Okay. Now, sometimes there might be need for skill training and development if we notice that maybe one of the root cause is the fact that we have less experienced people on the team, or also it might just be the fact that they don't even know how to estimate, and that might require you to have an estimation workshop for that team so that they can improve the way they estimate their work. Sometimes if maybe the root cause comes from like maybe stakeholders, then you want to see how to address some of those. Sometimes you find out that the reason why our velocity kind of switches up and down is the fact that there's a lot of work that pulls into the sprint, maybe coming from a stakeholder, coming from a product owner. We want to address what that reason is and then look for how to resolve it. And then also you want to have a continuous improvement plan where you're monitoring the numbers to be able to see how your implementation plans are affecting the numbers positively. So these are some of the points that you can put together when answering that question. Now, if you don't even understand that question, you will not be able to answer it. And now that you've actually even taken a look at the response that I've given, you can then go online and further your understanding now, because you know that, oh, there might be situations where velocity will fluctuate. I can then go on Google, I can then go, research more articles or more videos that can then explain what I should do in that situation. And you'll be able to even find more answers that can then help you have a better understanding of that concept. Now, I hope that after this video, you become more confident in your journey of becoming a Scrum Master, because now you have the tools, the resources that you need to excel on your job. So it's high time you kick that worry throughout the door, because there's a solution to your problem. Pick this book, use it as described in this video, and thank me later. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to like, feel free to subscribe, and feel free to share with your friends. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next episode of the Exceptional Scrum Master podcast. Don't forget to buy my book. Thank you.